I know I'm going to sound quiet because I'm too lazy to get up out of my bed, but listen to me. This is about Bye. And for those who like to snoop my channel because they want to somewhat play Bye, this is for you. Now, many of you have probably seen my stats and are asking me why do I have FM2 tunes. Well, um, before I had freeze tunes. Before freeze got readjusted and the scaling of the detonation would be, look at snowflake release enhance. That's the detonation we're talking about. Well, before, it wasn't based on the scale. It wasn't the scaling wasn't based on how many final move levels that you have or FM levels. Before it was just on its own, and being tied to John Slash. Um, at this time, during this time, freezes during this time freezes level if you had level 14 was 7.9k physical and magic power percentage. After the patch hit, well, after they fixed it on Nautic, everyone on this server, Code Closers, thought that it was a nerf, and they clowned it. Yes. Later on, they realized that it was a buff. I tried to tell them at the time, but they didn't listen. Why am I telling you this? Hold on. Hold on. Hold on. Don't go anywhere. Hold on. So, after that, they started asking questions. Well, what do we tune now? A lot of them went to stat tunes. One of the people who were taught by me, not taught by me, one of the people who was taught by the same teacher as me, well, he didn't, he fell off somewhere, per se. Why am I telling you this? Well, you should know. One of the people who was also taught by the same teacher that I had, he fell off somewhere and kind of gave up. But he made a guide even though I knew that there was something bad was gonna happen. Well, a lot of things in that guide is not correct. So I will tell you instead. Okay? Now, freeze now is way much more buff than the freeze before. The problem is, once again, the scaling of Snowflake Release Enhance is based off on your final moves level, your FM levels. Now, when you tune on your costumes, I'm talking about on your feet, on your effect, your arm, and your waist. You can only choose between Final Move 1 or FM1 or Final Move 2, FM2. FM1 and FM2. Now, I checked the damage. I took everything off and checked the damage, okay? Now, listen to me while I unpack this, okay? Don't go anywhere. Listen to me while I unpack this, okay? Now, we usually move away from this skill and go on to the next skill once we see the TF sign. The TF sign, which you'll probably see in here. You'll see the TF sign in here, in this skill. It literally says Swords and Girl Impact. Yeah, we usually move off when we see the TF sign, because even then, that's when it does the whole skill for itself. Now, Final Move 2 actually hits more. Surprisingly, Final Move actually hits more than it hurts more whether you may believe it or not. It hits more than FM1. So that's one reason to choose Final Move. I mean FM2. Another thing is that it's your debuff. You're going to use the skill a lot. It's more important than FM1. This one's more important than FM1. And the reason why this one is more important than FM1 is because, well, it's used as a debuff. You have two debuffs on by. FM2 and Whale Sword. Now, are you still with me? You're probably not, but you will understand when you read the skills, okay? When you read the skills on your free time, you will understand everything that I'm about to tell you. Please read the skills after this. Now, Freeze is your main DPS skill. No matter, do not listen to what anyone else tells you. Freeze is your main DPS skill, and here's why. The way you utilize your skills in Bai's arsenal, you're using Freeze the most. Why are you using Freeze the most? Look at the second paragraph. Give Snowflake Mark to enemies hit for 8 seconds. And if Bai attacks the marked enemy with keyword 24 attacks or a keyword special move FM, the mark disappears when putting back the sword and deals damage that counts as critical. Airstrike, chase, and back attack. When the snowflakes are removed, when the mark is removed, the cooldown of Freeze is reset. If Freeze is used while there are enemies with the mark, they will be released, but the cooldown will not be reset. Now, the reason why I read this to you because you need to know how Freeze works. However, Freeze is more than just putting the mark on the enemy, and this is what I'm going to teach you about Freeze. Freeze is more than just, using it whenever it's up and putting it on the enemy. Freeze is also how you stack for Whale Sword. Yes, Freeze is how you also stack for Whale Sword. Whale Sword, you have 3 stacks, right? I'm going to show you. I'm actually going to show you. Freeze does 2 things. When you use Freeze, you get a stack for Whale Sword, Enhanced Whale Sword. And you get a stack called Fable. Alright? I'm going to show you. Alright. Now, I want you to pay attention to look above my skills. Do you see all this right here? Pay attention to it when I use Freeze. I'm going to tell you what each means. This is the stack for Enhanced Whale Sword. If you use it 3 times, if you use this thing 3 times, you can do Enhanced Whale Sword. This means that the Enhanced Whale Sword will do way much more damage than Whale Sword normally will. This is the Fable stack. Each time you use Freeze, you get a stack for Whale Sword, and you get a stack for Fable. See? See how it gets higher? When you use Freeze, within 5 seconds after you use Freeze, Enhance ES Westro. What this means is, when you use ES Westro, 5 seconds after you use Freeze, when you use ES Westro will do more damage. So, Here we go. I get another stack. See? Another stack. Now, notice something? Where are my stacks? Oh, there it is. Did you notice that every time I'm using freeze, a stack, you get a stack for Fable? See? Look at how it's just stacking up. Now this one right here, Moon Snow Flowers. You get this when you detonate freeze. Okay? You get this when you detonate freeze. This one right here. This stack right here, you can stack this up to 3 times by detonating freeze each time. I'm talking about, I'll show you. Hold on, I'll show you again. Now, this time, when I go back in, the second I start using freeze, watch my stack. Watch this right here. Watch this right here. Where you saw my stacks and stuff, watch this right here. Now, I want you to pay very close attention to my stack buff, okay? As soon as I use freeze and try to do rotation, pay very close attention to my stack buff. See? Now, you see that one? You see the one? Okay, watch again. See how I went to 2? All right, again. Yes. So freeze is more than just putting it on an enemy and then freeze is more than just putting it on an enemy and then doing random ass rotations just to detonate the freeze. This is how you stack. You see these? This skill, this right here, these stats right here, are used for EX Approaching Slash, this one, and it's used for this one. Enhanced Well Sword is used for this. See how it goes? This is used for this. So when you do this, 5 seconds, and EX Well Sword's up, and you've already used Freeze Even Tears and Well Sword, you use this. That's EX Well Sword. Now, let's move on. Dawn Slash. Read it. Summons an icy pill. Skip that one. This skill inflicts airstrike damage even if used on the ground and makes you invincible while cast. You use the whole skill. Here's why you use the whole skill. Pay attention to his stomach, okay? Snowfoot, snowstorm attack, and freeze are enhanced. Cold attack and snowflakes release attack are increased relative to the level of freeze. Okay. Okay. Oh, that's where it is. So, here's the thing with Draw and Slash, okay? You want to use it before you use freeze, right? Do not do this, okay? Do not do this. Now, let me tone it. Okay. Do not do this, okay? Instead, what I want you to do, now, pay attention to, I'm gonna use, okay, slow down. Did you notice something? What did I just do? I just used Draw and Slash in 4, right? Did you notice something? Look, that's a snowflake mark, right? But I didn't use freeze, right? Right. So, here's the thing. With Draw and Slash, use Draw and Slash and then use freeze. Then do a rotation. Now, that's what Draw and Slash is mainly for. Draw and Slash is mainly for a chance to... Draw and Slash is usually used for putting a new snowflake mark on the enemy, or having the chance to put a new snowflake mark on the enemy when you use the whole skill. That's why it's important to use Draw and Slash in 4 for that chance right there. That snowflake right there that you see on his stomach. Yes, that pretty little snowflake that you see right there on his stomach. That's why it's very important that you use Draw and Slash in 4. And it's also very important when you use Draw and Slash before using freeze. You want to detonate it. You want to detonate the snowflake mark. Let me show you again. You want to detonate the snowflake mark with Draw and Slash, so that way you can put on another snowflake mark along with putting in a new freeze. And see, so it would be like that, just like that. If you slow down the video, go back and look at it. Now this one. Please don't use it on the ground. Use FM2 in the air. Here's the thing that I need for you guys to know. Your FMs, FM1, FM1, FM2, FM3, FM4, your FMs won't do its amazing damage without freeze. Here's the thing though. You usually see me using... You usually see me using FM1 and then immediately moving on to the next skill once I see the TF sign, yes? Well, that's why 1, 2, and 3, along with every single rotation that you do, is tied around freeze. every single rotation that you do. Notice that freeze is the main skill that I'm using. Why? Because once again, freeze is your main DPS skill. Even if you use stat tunes, freeze is your main DPS skill. That's the thing that I want you to know. That's the thing that I'm trying to get across. Freeze, regardless, is your main DPS skill. This is literally the first skill that you get as buy. This is your main DPS skill. Okay? Okay. Now, let's move on. Now that you know the truth about freeze. Okay? Now, let me take you back to my stats. You see that I have four FM2 tunes. Why? What did I just tell you? Freeze's detonation is now scaled based on the amount of FM levels that you have. So, this, and this. I'm not sure if this works, so let me see. I'm not sure if this one works, so let me see if it works. Yeah, it don't count. So it's basically FM1, FM2, FM3, and FM4. The total amount of levels that you have for FM1, 2, 3, and 4, right? Now, when you tune on here, hold on. Now, when you tune on here, you only have a choice between two final moves. Final move 1 and final move 2. Your passing skill and your debuff that actually does damage. Here's the kicker. FM2 actually does more damage than FM1. So, which one would you choose? If you're going to go skill tunes, which one would you choose? FM2, right? Right. You choose FM2. Here's another thing. When you level up your FM2, which I'm going to show you. I'm going to show you it myself. Alright. 9183 2323. Now watch what happens when I do level FM2. Look at it now. 8852 2297. Now let me level it up. See? See? See it now? Alright. Now, for those who use stat tunes, you probably heard somebody be like, stat tunes are supposed to improve your overall damage. Here's the thing though. Your final moves are the ones that does the most damage. With E as opposed to slash also doing damage. Which is why we tune it. Yep. Your final moves are the one that does the most damage. Outside of using freeze consistently, if you know how to utilize freeze, what is going on? Hold on one second. Now, like I was saying, your FM2, FM3, and FM. We're not counting FM1 because we use it as a passing skill. FM2, FM3, FM4, and EX posting slash. Aside from using freeze, if you have to utilize freeze. That's where you get your damage. You have to use freeze as much as you can. Again, the key to doing DPS on buy is that you're using freeze as much as you can. Freeze is still your main DPS skill. Your playstyle for buy, your ideal playstyle for buy is utilizing freeze and its detonations as much as you can. Literally, you are supposed to use freeze whenever it's up. A lot of us struggle with it. I struggle with it from time to time, especially when I panic. But you're supposed to use freeze whenever it's up. Okay? Freeze is the skill that you're using the most in a fight or in a run. Okay? Okay. No other skill. Freeze is the skill that you're using the most. That's your main aspect. That's Buy's main aspect. Freeze. So, for those who use stat tunes, somebody probably told you this increases your overall skill damage. My skill build is revolved around freeze. The reason why is because freeze is your main DPS skill. That's why I have FM2 tunes. That's why I have FM2 tunes, and let alone, I don't care for TCP. Now, moving on. Here's the problem about the current skills we have. Right now, we don't have 5th job promotion, okay? We don't have 5th job promotion. Now, when I took off all my gear and I tested the damage by itself, no skill tunes, no nothing. I just had on a bare arm. I just had on a bare arm in test, right? And I know something. This doesn't do damage. 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 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. This had the lowest amount of damage between all the FMs. Of course, it's FM 1. This didn't do damage. This didn't do damage. This does damage, but it's decent damage. Not really, big boy damage. This doesn't do damage. This doesn't do damage. This doesn't do damage. This doesn't do damage. I know you see it now, but yeah. Compared to 1, 2, 3, and 4. Well, yeah. 1, 2, 3, and 4. This does damage. This right here does damage. Which is why we tune it. That's exactly why we tune it. Because out of all the normal skills, this does the most damage. That's why we tune it. This is your true damage skill, and this is the FM that does the most damage. That's also why you tune this skill. Here's the thing. This is an FM, right? So see? So it's beneficial all around. Right? Right. This one does the most damage out of all your skills. This one and this one. 1 and 2. 1 because the skill alone. 2 because you're using it like. But here's the thing. Freeze doesn't do. This alone does damage, yes, and it's the only 2 damage skill. But here's the thing. It won't do its usual insane amount of damage without freeze. And I've just repeated it so many times that because, once again, say it with me, freeze is your main DPS skill. Alright, now. So that's why I have FM2 tunes on my costume. Because I'm utilizing freeze. Bai's arsenal or main aspect or main gist of her is utilizing freeze. And earlier in this video, you saw why freeze is so important. You saw why freeze is so important to utilize. So the stat tunes, yeah, it will benefit every other skill, but some of these skills in her arsenal aren't really worth improving. They're used as filler skills. They're used as filler skills, as hit counts. This has 8, this has 10, this has I think possibly the most hits. This has like what it had. Hold on. Wellsword had 15 hits. Out of everything here, the one that has the most hit counts is Cast Sword Shield. But the problem is, Cast Sword Shield has the most hit counts and everything, but like each hit alone is like, small. So you have like 1, 2, which is, don't get me wrong, all these does is damage, but you have to use freeze first. Everything always goes back to freeze. So yes, I would rather, instead of focusing on every skill, even the skills that aren't even worth it, I would rather buff up the main arsenal, the main aspect, the backbone behind my gameplay. So yes, I would rather pay more attention to freeze, because that's the main DPS skill. That's your main gist. This is how you get your damage. Freeze itself, using freeze itself, and then detonating freeze is literally how you do your extra damage for your other skills. And then it detonates freeze, right? So that's extra damage right there, yes? So freeze really wouldn't do its extra damage for, 2, 3, 4, and freeze wouldn't be able, and this skill wouldn't be able to do its massive damage without this skill wouldn't be able to do its massive damage without detonating freeze. This skill and every other skill wouldn't be able to do its massive damage without using freeze via the Fable buff. The Fable buff that I showed you earlier in this video. This skill, if you use freeze this 3 times, this skill, if you use it 5 seconds, within 5 seconds after freeze, this skill, well, all the skills here won't do its massive damage without freeze. This skill, Cold Attack, won't do its damage without you utilizing freeze, or without you, tampering around with freeze. So that's all the more reason why I would rather buff up freeze than buff up every other skill. And then these get buffed up regardless, because look, we have set effects. We have set effects on our stuff. We can tune. We have set effects and everything. All the more reason we have set effects. So that's all the more reason why I pay the most attention to freeze. So now that I know the importance of freeze, if you see me run around with FM2 tunes, well, that's why. The FM2 tunes is more to it than just buffing up FM2 and letting it do more damage than FM1. Trust me, if we could tune FM4 on these costume pieces, I would have tuned FM4 instead. FM3 is a FM, but is mainly used for like a stalling mechanic. But surprisingly, oh, did you know that FM3 does more damage than FM2 and FM1? This is your second strongest. Hold on, it's lagging. There you go. This is your second strongest FM. What? My second strongest FM? Surprisingly. Or if you want to test it right now, before we get ahead of ourselves, you want me to test it right now? I'll do it right now. In fact, let's test it right now. Let's test if I'm saying this right. We will actually test right now. A level 21 FM2 versus a level 21 FM2 versus a level see? With FM2, you saw 1.9 bill. With FM3, you saw 3.5 bill, right? Right. Okay. So FM3 is your second strongest FM skill. Surprisingly. And we all said that FM3 ain't shit and all this shit, and well, that's your second strongest FM skill. So yeah, we had two choices. I had two choices to choose between, FM1 and FM2, and that's why when I was explaining to go FM2 tunes, they chose FM2. Well, they didn't say it the way I'm saying it, but I found out the more full reason as to why you say it, as to why you go with this tune. Now, here's the thing about her arsenal. Her skills. This is used for mobility. Mobility, or if you get too far from the enemy, which is what you mainly want to use it for. You also want to use it as a filler skill for, once again, say it with me, freeze rotation. Filler skill for freeze rotation. Major hit count for freeze rotation. Used for two buffs, a permanent buff and a temporary buff, and also used for hits for, say with me, freeze rotation. Your strongest normal skill, but also used for, say with me, freeze rotation. It's still a filler skill, but your strongest filler skill. You use it. You have two inputs. You can use it on the ground or you can use it in the air. It will do more damage if you're in the air. But you can barely aim with this one and it doesn't do any damage. But wait, what was that? Oh, it has 10 hits? Oh, what? 10 hits for, say it with me, freeze rotation. It's a filler skill. Filler skill for what? Say it with me, freeze rotation. One second. So back to what I was saying. Filler skill. Even though this is the strongest normal skill, still a filler skill for freeze rotation. Gives you 2 buff, a permanent and a temporary buff, but gives you hits for freeze rotation. So, still somewhat of a filler skill. Major hit count for freeze rotation. Major hit count for freeze rotation. Also gives you a buff. This one also gives you debuff. Detonate the snowflake mark with this skill, while a chance to implement another snowflake mark while using this one as well. Filler skill. Some of the filler skills in your arsenal, trust me, if you get bored enough to do the damage testing yourself, like take off everything. Skill tunes included. Take off everything. Skill tunes included. Pull on a weapon that doesn't have any effects or anything. No effects whatsoever. Run into a testing room or something and see the damage for yourself. You will see that a lot of these skills don't really do a lot of damage, but the main ones that does damage is your FMs and EX Pulse Slash. But when you use freeze for your FMs, you'll notice that freeze really does help out with your FMs damage. And then normal rotations, when you do normal rotations, well, freeze is reliable for that too. Freeze is like that consistently additional damage that you get as long as you use it. Even if your rotations are crap, you're still using freeze. So it's all the more reason that I buff up my freeze rather than buffing up every other skill. I just focus on the one that's more important, the one that really brings in the power. Freeze really brings in the power. Your FM2, I'm going to tell you this right now, if you use FM1 alone without freeze, it sucks. If you use FM2 without freeze, it sucks. If you use FM3 without freeze, it sucks. The only one that does decent amount of damage without freeze is this one. Because of the detonation. Yes, because of the detonation. And there you have it. That's why freeze is so important, and that's why I have FM2 tunes. You all are welcome.